Good morning to you, my friends, wherever you may be in the world today. Alan Clements here from Santa Monica. Today, May 30th, 2021. I hope you're well wherever you may be in the world, in your heart, in your body, in your mind, in your passions, in your deep interests, in your vision, your wonderment, keeping active in your regardless, regardless of the circumstances, that courage to see, the courage even to look, how easy it is to turn away, the courage to see, the courage to look, the courage to face even the face of love. That's often very challenging for us humans to be in the face of the kiss, of the hand, of the intimacy, of the birth of something new beyond the familiar, the conditioned. How many of us have felt and played along those invenerating lines of psychology with physicality called struggle, anxiety, trauma, and have done through our own yoga, our meditation, our hymns to our hearts and to the goddesses all around and inside. May me see you, may me love you, may I understand you, may I look at you, feel you, may I not turn away. Just different ways to describe this mysterious yet very discernible process of engaging existence and therefore defining our lives based on the spiritual path, the Dharma path, the path of awakening, the path of freedom. Call it the Dharma life, the Dhamma life in the Buddhist Pali word. So I hope you're well wherever you may be. Another extemporaneous rave to the blood moon, inside and outside, the eternity, the billion trillion other habitable planets in the eternity of cosmos, this samsara. I know I was in Bali this last year, just raving into the intimacy of a deep, silent abide in nature. Looking up at the stars there, similar to Hawaii, where you are in outer space, right? You're not looking from Earth. And there you see and you feel and you wonder, you create, you imagine. How often I would just look up and smile in a deep existential delight. Alan Clements, you are not alone on planet Earth, much less alone in this cosmos. There are life forms all around. The bees, the hummingbirds, the snakes, the devas, the brahmas, the angels. Even you, Mr. Satan. We will find a home for you. We will not throw you away. We will not denigrate you. We will do all that we can to look into the face even of evil. And as warriors and warrioresses, gods and goddesses, savants of the cool, of the mystical, of the rad, of the defiant, we are here to make a difference in this cosmos, embodied in this temporal, physical encasement with this infinite range of possibility of consciousness and mind. We are here to continue this looking, this courage to see, the courage to feel, and the ongoing deepening courage upon what we do see, not to turn away. How easy it is to turn away, to state something so radically obvious. And I don't even indicate in this sharing that turning away is an expression of fear or cowardice. Limits and understanding boundaries, pliable and fixed as they may be or need to be, are a remarkable necessity in evaluating our own capacity in the face of complexity. And so I do honor that edge, not a line in the sand, but more of an existential wave that moves based upon my emotionality, my psychology, my own, what I call my paramis, the paramis of presence, truthfulness, integrity, courage, determination, resolve, loving kindness, compassion, my goodness, wisdom, and the radiance of freedom, always moving in tandem, if you will, with seeing that the paramis arise with the courage to see and not turn away, and keeping a mindful hand and heart on those deep, what would I say, those discernible energetics within consciousness. Therein lies the literacy that I speak of meditatively, the capacity of the mind to see almost Helen Keller-like beyond blind eyes, but to see mindfully with the eyes the sensations, the contour, the vibratory nature of states of mind, the beautiful states of mind, the paramis, the excellences, and see that they co-join with seeing, not just seeing with the eye or seeing with the ear or seeing with smell or seeing with taste or seeing with thought, but equally seeing with psychic intuitive intimacy, trusting more intimately in the discerning depth of our own mind, that consciousness has the capacity to see not only through the physical form of the eye with light, but also deeply sees the reality of something. We know it. Knowing and seeing for me are very synonymous. Insight, panya, or wisdom, the seeing reality rightly and being able to think and speak and behave in tandem, if you will, that is in alliance with insight and wisdom, so that we think and we speak and we act in ways that reflect our integrity, our sila. I hope you're with me today. Nice to see you. Sunday here in Los Angeles. The courage to see and not turn away. Oh, pause and commemorate, consecrate. May I invite you to invite me, to invite our friends, to invite each other to take a moment of cognitive pause, emotional pause, spiritual pause, Dhamma pause, and may we excite the capacity to see and to feel, so that we make this time together, brief as it may be, an act of meditative awakening, Dhamma awakening, the liberation, the ongoing liberation from hindrance, obscurations, ill pursuits, cul-de-sacs, ways that we enact mediocrity, ways that we abscond from passion, insight, the ways that we negate our own freedom, and oddly at times psychologically through folds and conditioning, we obscure or challenge the freedom of others, even to the point where we can see in the world how humans misbehave and what we do to our own species in the name of. So may I invite you to pause, One of the things that I've seen over the last few months is to take the jitteriness out of my heart. Relax that dimension of consciousness where stress and anxiety abides, where there's a narrative that's often unrecognized with self-doubt or fear. The variables of who I am versus what I'd like to be, the ideas of what's happening versus what seems not to happen, and just drop in more to this, I would call it existential, karmic trust, Dhamma trust, taking refuge in Buddha Dhamma Sangha, a deep, deep existential, numismatic dignity, a rest in conscious, mindful choice making, that there are navigations going on at this very moment that exceed my cognitive presence. So seeing, let me get back into seeing here, and the courage to not turn away. Soon I will be leaving Los Angeles. No later than the end of June. Destined, if alive, to the next move, either through Hawaii or to Bali or directly to Bali. They're the closest homes that I've known outside of the sacredness of beloved Burma and the heart of the people. They're not just the land, but the heart of the people. So courageous in their willingness to see freedom and feel democracy and include others in that seeing and feeling and fight through the heart, not just the fist or the gun, but to fight for the heart, for the freedom and the democracy and the right to create, the right to breathe in the sanctity of peace for other. And I carry that gift in my heart, thanking the people of Burma, the teachers, my mentors, my friends, some of them who've passed away, others who at this very moment are detained and or imprisoned. Thank you, thank you, thank you from my heart for the gift of our relationship, of being able to learn together, to see together, to point out where I may not be seeing more clearly, and how to invoke deeper qualities of courage, to not turn away, to defy and resist, to elevate the status of self and other simultaneously in this South African concept of Ubuntu. I am who I am. Through you, we are together through each other. The oxygen that we breathe simultaneously. Here we are, taking a pause in this great expanse of 1 billion trillion other inhabitable planets around this deep, infinite cosmos known as multidimensionality. That here we sit in this mystical moment as spiritual mavericks, goddess rebels, hip-hop song artists, whatever we do and how we define ourselves. May I encourage you to go to that place in your own heart, in your own mind, unmitigated, unpostponed, occupy, engage, elevate, enhance, deepen, oxygenate the most beautiful, most courageous places in inner beingness, all throughout our mind, our lungs, our brain, our eyes, our ears, our histories. Radical courage to see the reality of life and the courage to engage that reality through action, through thought, speech, meditation, in dynamic employment, identical to the way that we breathe, each of us compelled by the DNA of God to breathe on our own. No one can breathe for us. We must do it repeatedly. The same with Dhamma, the same with yoga, the same with the art, the Dhamma art of seeing and not turning away. So may I encourage you to encourage me, to encourage our friends, to encourage each of us to elevate together, to create a non-postponed frequency of how we or you define your holiness, your own reverence to what? To your Dharma, to your yoga, to take time and location out of practice, and to live and abide in a walking, moving, reclining, all posture, all time, all state, all context, living, breathing Dhamma experience that has the vocation to see reality as it really is and to feel it, to know it. Let it nurture us. Let reality nurture us and not turn away from old age, disease, mortality, war, famine, all the ways in which life is denigrated. Knowingly and unknowingly, may we have the deep ability, the ongoing courage to see reality rightly and to co-join that seeing with love, with patience, determination, and with empathy and compassion, and deep restraint to not violate in the name of freedom or Dhamma. I know when I did leave Burma for the final time after being a Buddhist monk ever so briefly, timeless briefly, I ended up living with my partner at that time in Ubud in Bali in the 1980s, 1984, 85, 86. I don't want to reminisce about old Burma or old Bali. It's just what it was. But there was something, and I feel it even more vibrantly at the moment. There was a deep silence, a deep feel. You know how it is at certain times in our life where you feel the presence of the Lord, the presence of the holy, the presence of the mystical. Sometimes you see a boy or a girl, a woman dressed in their finest, carrying that which they carry in their heart and their head. You smell the fragrance of a transformational, eternal incense that isn't just something that burns, but something that's felt. You know how we tune in at times through the love of birth and the birth of love and the poetry of the mystical, the Rumi-esque in each of us, the goddess, the Avalokiteshvara, the Buddha, the Yasodhara. And we move out of the dimensions of fear and the predictions of pain or the deep conditioned feelings that some of us have at different times of being without or not having enough. And you occupy not just seeing reality rightly, but seeing a more intimate, sacred reality more freely. It's amazing how many bodies there are that we live in. I do believe that evolution is both in form and in mind and in time. It's a radiance, a gradation of light, like colors are gradations of light. And that within the body there are ultimate dimensions. We're all devas, we're all humans, we're all animals, we're all insects, we're all Brahma gods and goddesses, we're all Yasodharas, we're all feminine, we're all masculine, we're transgender, we're equally very gendified. We're all beings at once and simultaneously separate. And we're trying here in this deep, infinite, interrelated mosaic called samsara, trying to understand how to decathex ourselves and each other from self-generated dukkha, suffering. If there was no dukkha, it'd be absolutely a sacred, theatrical, mystical play, ongoing, without genocide, without persecution, without rape, to state these obvious. And so seeing is not to turn away from these things, but to find vibratory dimensions of being, and learning how to co-occupy them with insight and wisdom and strength and stealth and courage. And once we occupy these more radical places of Dhamma that go so far beyond mindfulness of a phenomena, but the deep occupation, right here, that's the key for me, is the deep occupation, the embodiment of insight and wisdom. Walking around as a liberating being rather than simply a conscious mind. A liberating being. My life is an expression of freedom in action, right? Declare it, roar it out. Let it just resonate from all of our pores and our senses. Let it radiate like a light beam from our heart, and occupy that Dhamma and take the fear out of the fabric of presence. I fear no evil, I fear no death, I fear no illness. You cannot take my life from me if I live more in the radiance of a liberated presence beyond fear, right? So being in Bali, New Bud, living on the deep gorge in a spectacular home, and the birds and the ducks and the local population and the chickens and the goats and the rainbows at times and the radiance of light, yeah? And then just deeply coming out of a long meditation and just looking at this pristine nature and feeling the radiance of the holy. And I can hear it in my mind now. I can feel it in my heart right now. Whether it's translocal or local to Bali or someplace in some mystical projection, I can feel that I'm being called home. That navigational movement of the spirit, a deeper rhythm in the cosmic flow of my own uniqueness as an individual, and at the same time more in the liberating river of Dhamma, calling me home to my samsaric sangha, those boys and girls and angels and devas and brahmins who we have broken bread, danced and loved, given birth to each other numerous times through different forms. And equally, we're learning that mystical, rad language of Dhamma and Parami and the poetics of freedom. And we reflect back to each other in mirror-like states of lovemaking mind, and equally hand-holding compassionate support. I wipe the tears from your eyes, and you wipe the sweat from my brow. I'm unable to feed myself, and you feed me. And how imaginable, how unimaginable that we've lived and breathed in this infinite world of shared presence. And I want to find that coming home. Coming home. Coming home, the capacity, the deep inner capacity to hear and to see and not turn away from, I dare even use the word, my Dhamma destiny. That deeper vocation of where to go with whom and why and what will be done. And it comes so much back to some form of listening. just deep, deep listening. So interesting how many ways in which people occupy their lives, what they pay attention to. So I'm not indirectly judging that. But as the precipice of mortality is more known, I feel that this seeing and listening and knowing is becoming ever more important. And I'm reflecting back in this Ubuddian days in Bali, where I'm likely to be headed soon. My real desire is to co-create a 4-week trans retreat to commune in something so sacred and so holy, not just to heal, but equally to explore. Remember at that time going down to Canggu, this is pre-Canggu, back in the day when psilocybin was growing wild everywhere, probably still is, but probably more cultivated. And I remember doing a 4 or 5 month period of pretty much every day just dried, low dosing of the psilocybin and communing in nature, communing in meditative presence, and doing my very best to be as pixelated as possible in that process. And I remember I told this story many, many times, but it's come to me today, and I'll end with this, about the courage to see. Sometimes when I hear the word, the courage to see and not turn away, it's easy to, I would say, think that what I mean, unpleasant things that you see, not to turn away from something unpleasant. But I have seen in myself, and I've seen in a lot of yogis, a lot of meditators, a lot of Dhamma savants. The truth is, in many ways, a very difficult experience to embrace. The truth of unknowing, the truth of sacred narratives that no longer serve or even are true. How easy it is to unknowingly define outmoded, call them cognitive arteries and lungs, definitions of inner beingness that are just memories. They no longer live and breathe like the anatomical system of our own bodies. They're kind of cognitive fossils within consciousness. I've seen this so often with people who define themselves based on their past. And they go on deep, often unknowing, deliberate ways to live in the self-sculptures of a fossilized face, a fossilized mind. It moves. Cognitive fossils move. They're still waves and particles, but they're predictable and knowable and often based on the attachment. Again, stating the obvious, we don't see them, and we require a very sensitive, existential psychotherapist, someone who is living through a trans filter of the psychedelic, nuministic existential sensitivity, and how easy it is not to even hear from her or him the fossilization of presence. more extreme examples are people who live in habit, the classical meaning of addiction, repetitive actions through eye, ear, nose, body, tongue, behavior that are counterproductive to the well-being, the holy status of soul. And we can't break the habit of the repetitive pain, joy cycle at the sense door, the mind door. But as we drop these so-called limiting behaviors, I don't want to denigrate them. It's easy to be addicted unknowingly to an idea of one's own development, one's own insight, one's own idea of enlightenment, one's own theology, one's own predictable prose and poetry. One recites and plagiarizes one's own being over and over again because it's profitable, because people applaud it. You're a scripted puppet of your own unwillingness to see and feel and relax the hold on privilege and profit and pretense to stand more intimately naked in the fidelity of naked, transparent freedom, more of the nibbāna, unconditioned understanding of presence. I had the feeling today, actually, that I would like to do small amounts of the psilocybin, accentuate and meditate and listen and feel. I'm very keen right now on increasing my visualization. I have this deep private part of me that is utterly fascinated with the world in what's known in classical Buddhist language, the abhinya. Super knowledge, supra mundane, hyper cognitive skills. I don't say these things lightly, but the more nuanced resonance of cognitive nuance, emotional nuance, and I've been reading a lot of classical Buddhist texts, and I remember my time in the monastery and this particular story of being in Ubud and low dosing on psilocybin. They all kind of mix in this. I have this enchantment in me, this location where I'm enchanted, which is what I'm trying to resurrect more and more. The enchantment with consciousness and freedom and the future of that exploration. And there's something in that sensitivity that comes into this world, abhinya, that like all the mystics who were able to discern that His Holiness the Dalai Lama is actually the 14th incarnation of the Dalai Lama. He's not mixing the Dalai Lama with Gandhi and Martin Luther King and, Joan of Arc. It's the Dalai Lama. Just like you have, and I have, how many incarnations, and that someone has seen us and has brought that to conscious clarity. Well, I want to participate in that deep, psychic, intuitive process as a means to more consciously visualize structures and formations that not only heal, in my case, this aneurysm, and I pause here, even if healed, you can't heal sufficiently enough to become immortal. So it's just a buying of some time. And even then it could be, oh my God, I wish I'd like to get out of here, right? There's a tsunami called Extinction on the beach of everywhere. And it's like, now that I've healed my aorta, I'm walking on, in Uluwatu or Baldwin Beach or Kihei, and the tsunami is like, I think I want my aneurysm back. I'd much prefer to die in my room on a low dose of psilocybin than be engulfed by the tsunami called the apocalypse, or this invisible nuclear bomb that just went off in Honolulu, or in Jakarta, or in Rangoon, or in Moscow, or in Melbourne, which many scientists and seers are predicting on the near horizon. And it's like, give me that aorta back, right? So it's all relative. And what I'm looking to here is the psychic intuitive capacity, the enchantment and the deeper willingness to see and to feel and not turn away from my Dhamma vocation, my Dhamma destiny. I don't want to in any way, under any circumstance, place my health, my worth, my wealth in things or stuff or in time. Call me and call you Dhamma dreamers. Yes, fine, we are. But we are pragmatists. We cook, we clean, we use our hands, we use our hearts. We're engaged practitioners of the mystical. But I don't want to be satisfied with ordinary human health. It's just what it is. It's been a good run, a good adventure. 70 years is plenty of time when the average age over there, everywhere, could be 2, 3, 6, who knows? So what? What's a second between 50 and 110? I guess what I'm trying to come to here in my own awkward, mystical way is what really matters to the soul of my own being. Why do I do yoga? Why do I meditate? Why do I? What is the vocation of my Dhamma? To see, to consciously inhabit as vocation of being simultaneous to the art of breathing. I want to oxygenate over and over again, inhabit, and create more nuance and the courage to see more intimately. That's what I'm coming back to here, is to not turn away from enlightenment, to not turn away from discontinuity, to not buy those deeply embedded forms of propaganda to create fear, hesitancy, doubt, hoarding, protection. Yes, that too, but abide in that more beautiful river of acquainting myself with the love affair, with the intimacy of the mystical. And what does that mystical mean to me? Truthfulness. I know I go on and on about this. Perhaps it's a lesson I need to learn, is to find and feel my joy, piti, the Pali word, joy in the way in which I inhabit my body and my mind and my paramis. Take it off of those areas of time and location and mapping and navigation alone, yes, drive well, walk well, bathe well, eat well, choose well, live well, be together as well as possible, but equally be so well in your own spirit. I'm low-dosing in Ubud in 1985, occupying myself in nature, acquainting myself more with the tender, intimate reality of just pure being in there. I want to know what it is to move mountains, to fly through the air, to create dreams and form, to dance on the edges of these kilesa and say, I see you, I feel you, I see your unity with me and non-me. Even the reflection of my own mind is seen as a facet of the goddess, of God. I want to play in that deeply nuministic, I don't know the word, trans-existential, liberating, enlightening process of knowing a phenomenology that is so sacred. I want to commune with the goddess of freedom. I want to know the Buddha within, and I want to know my samsaric Sangha. I feel that I finally, in this lifetime, after all of these years of ardent tears and struggle and pain and love making and dreaming, I found the confidence in the vocation to not fear mortality, to not fear aging, to not fear discontinuity, to not fear death, to dance on those mosaics and to walk through them into a more divine place. When I use the word the courage to see and not turn away, I'm speaking to myself, not you. But to know love when you see it. To find and inhabit, could there be the innate chemistry, deeper than the physical chemistry of being attracted to her or him? The deeper chemistry that includes that chemistry, the chemistry of lovemaking with the personalities of freedom, the aesthetic of liberation, the satire, the gallows humor of samsara. Not overcoming mind, but playing in that sacred, mystical awakening of the abhinya to occupy the Dhamma dance within the paramis as vocation of being. I think what I'm saying to myself as I hear it is to challenge perceptions of loneliness and mortality, and even of hope. And have the courage, yes, that's it, have the courage to call out sisters and brothers, mystical maverick artists, savants, trans-religious but deeply holy, radical, flesh embodied, caring of diet and mind, all the ways that we speak to the attributes of someone who lives within the intimacies of multi-dimensional bodies. Come play. I think that's what's been missing in this so-called pandemic lockdown, is the art of play, of communion, Remember back when we were children, maybe more recently in your own life, where we got so immersed in running together and laughing together. I remember watching my daughter so often with her friends and being so fully engaged, enchanted, right? Not turning away from that level of wonderment. How easy it is to predict the downfall, the collapse, but as my dad would so often say, no matter what, how dark it gets, there's always some light to be found. Be that light, right? Well, I want to be in that light right now. I want to play in that field of shared wonderment, of mystical possibility, and to create formations and structures in whatever time is left in this so-called life, and to rebirth along this edge of life and death until human death. But I want to do it well. This is the time. The retreat is life now. It's not Burma. It's not Bali. It's not Hawaii. It's not really a location per se, and yes, it is that too. But I'm calling out to that place in me, if you can hear it, and I'm calling out to that place in you, if you choose to want to hear it and respond to it. Make our Dhamma the highest vocation of our lives. I know what that means to me. It's the understanding of the cognitive characteristics of the 10 paramis, the 3 vocations of generosity, moral integrity, and bhavana, the beautification of these paramis through thought, speech, and action in shared space. I want to play with those girls and boys in that shared Dhamma radiance. I want to meditate together there, to make love together there, to create together there. And my sense is, as I just stumble forward into this mystical sort of poem prose, I hear the upper regions of Bali. If I can make it that long, and you make it that far, may we come together and create a month-long and perhaps eternity-long co-creation, something so rad, sacred, intimate, quiet, spacious. I want to visualize my aneurysm in the aorta. I want to visualize it as healthy. I want to visualize a healthy heart. And then I know, no matter what, I will have done my part. I would have done my duty to the ones that love me and the ones that I love, to show respect for those relationships by saying, I'm here. I'm going to do everything I can that I've ever known, draw upon every force I've ever engaged as the priority of my life, to live in intimate proximity and grow with you. So please, whoever is close to me in my life, here no matter what I decide, and certainly it'll be something very soon, and very likely it'll be something that does not include at this time surgical intervention. But it is not anything other than a radically positive choice that I love you, I want to be near you, I want to live long and strong in fidelity to my integrity. I'm going to give over everything imaginable to this visualization, the nuance of that healing, and at the same time live in the river of the evolutional presence of my life into the next, moment to moment, with you. O Samsarak Sangha, if you can hear this song, come play, create music, let's dance, let's hold hands, let's overcome age gap issues. We're all eternal and mortal at the same time, fading and dissolving. We're all embryonic. We're all forms of chrysalis in motion, in change. Let's overcome all shackles, all projections, all forms of existential and cognitive conditioned shame. And let's awaken together in this shared radiance of group, molecular, existential enlightenment. And may we spread the radiance of this freedom so far and wide, so strongly, as they're so certain that His Holiness the Dalai Lama is the 14th incarnation, that we know in our lives who we are, and we do all that we can in this little brief dance before the end of planet Earth, the end of our own mortal life, to keep alive the radiance of this Dhamma, this Dharma, the yoga of freedom, the poetry of liberation, through the applied, intimate, existential, physical, cognitive, tantric, erotic silence and science of not turning away from love, not turning away from our freedom, not turning away from intimacy, having the courage to get so transparent that we walk right into our own nibbāna, the unconditional radiance beyond birth and death, as I can imagine it at this moment. So from my heart to yours, thank you for dancing with me in this shared space, and God willing, I hope you have a beautiful day and hope to see you tomorrow. From my heart to yours, thank you.